ESPN just told the shocking truth as to why Sandy Brondello was let go by the New York Liberty.
A short statement did the damage. No leaks, no drama, just a few lines that landed like a gavel. For days after a first-round playoff exit, New York said the head coach who delivered its first championship would not be renewed. No spin, no softening, no mutual parting to cushion the drop. 1 year after the parade, Sandy Brondello was out. The timing turned a tough loss into a referendum. In this market, banners don't buy patience. They raise the bar. Suddenly, winning looked like a liability. Proof you'd set a standard so high that anything less would be treated like failure. Fans felt whiplash. 1 minute you're replaying the confetti, the next you're refreshing statements and trying to make sense of the math. Inside the league, the message rang louder than the press release. Stability here is conditional. When a champion isn't safe a year later, the scoreboard stops being the whole story. It becomes context, useful, but not decisive. And that's why the only question that mattered punched through the noise. How does a title move you closer to the door? If the answer were just results, nobody would have been this stunned. Results are clean. This wasn't. This was about standard, leverage, optics, and who gets to define enough when the lights are brightest. One phrase floated through every segment, post, and group chat: championship or bust. On paper, it sounds like hunger. In practice, it reads like a trap. In New York, the 2024 trophy stopped being a crown and became a baseline. Repeat or reset. That's the quiet rule that erases margins. No room for context, no room for a bruised rotation or a bad matchup. No room for the randomness that haunts every postseason. The bar doesn't move, you do. So when 2025 ended early, the conclusion arrived on rails, so fast it felt less like analysis and more like enforcement. You could hear it in the language: polished, calm, forward-looking. The kind of framing that jumps past why now and lands on what's next. It sells as strategy, evolution, proactive, future, but it also tells on itself. The standard was already set, and the decision was waiting for a window. That's what championship or bust does. It sharpens ambition and shortens patience. It turns a deep run into nice try, a conference banner into not quite, and a coach into a variable to be swapped when the graph points the wrong way. Fans felt it in the speed. Players felt the floor shift. And once the rule is in the room, the season isn't judged on progress. It's judged on perfection. Then came the official framing: polished, calm, and sharp enough to stick. A tidy explanation for a messy truth. In this city, the bar never lowers. Only people do.
Let's head on over to ESPN to see what Alexa had to say.
For a lot of folks this morning, a year removed from winning the title, what exactly led to the parting of ways between the Liberty and Sandy Brondello here?
Well, Malika, I know you guys talk about this a lot in the NBA and in other sports, but it was really championship or bust for New York and for Sandy Brondello. And in fact, if they hadn't won the championship last year, we might have been having this conversation a year ago.
Front offices don't just explain, they brand. The Liberty called the move proactive, language that sounds surgical and future-proof. Not about one bad week, about evolution and innovation. In a league that's getting deeper and smarter, the pitch is simple: stay ahead or fall behind. But proactive also does something else. It drags the spotlight off why now and onto what's next before people can finish the first question. Except timelines don't care about spin, dates talk louder. The dates won't argue. On September 23, 2025, for days after a first-round exit, the Liberty made it public: no renewal. This is the same coach who lifted the trophy in 2024 and the winningest in franchise history. Health was spotty, matchups were rough, and the season got short. The announcement didn't. It was fast, precise, and, under a sky-high bar, predictable. When the bar is perfection, anything less becomes evidence. But one voice cut through the corporate language and said the quiet part plainly.
We know Alexa from ESPN tweeted out earlier today that Sandy Brondello was let go. And the Indiana Fever, and the New York Liberty released the article as well, stating that they had let her go.
Becky Hammon didn't bring fireworks, just clarity. She said she didn't love the move for Sandy and praised both the resume and the person. In pro sports, That second part matters more than fans think. It means players trusted the room, the message landed. When a ring-holding peer says the choice feels off, people listen. It reframes the debate from results to values. What a franchise rewards when the confetti's gone. And if values are the lens, the locker room becomes the whole picture. You don't need leaked audio to read the psychology. When a coach wins a banner and still walks, the roster hears a louder message than any press release. Stability is conditional. In New York's market, pressure isn't a rumor, it's weather. Mix that with short-term deals and a question hums all off-season. If today isn't enough, why commit to tomorrow? Publicly, it's "we're moving forward." Privately, it can land as "anyone can be next." That's how trust becomes currency. Easy to spend, hard to replace. This is analysis. The timing and exit are documented. Meanwhile, attention snapped to the same headline, the empty chair.
I believe there could be some drama somewhere down the line between front office and Sandy. That's the only way this makes sense. Because prior to her winning last year, she had went to the WNBA championship the year before that as well. So you mean to tell me you're going to fire a coach for going to the WNBA championship 2 times in a row? She done won more games than any other coach in franchise history. And she simply only lost in the playoffs because of injuries. Like, there was nothing from her to cause the loss that Liberty took.
ESPN didn't just report the exit. It opened the door to a non-traditional hire. That's catnip for a city that loves headlines as much as hardware. A splash name can look visionary, or like optics with a clipboard. If it hits, New York looks prophetic. If it wobbles, it looks like a rebrand in sneakers. That's the tightrope the Liberty chose to climb, on purpose. Under that rope, the core question still hangs. What exactly wasn't enough? Numbers can prove a season. They can't always prove a standard. The 2025 run ended faster than anyone wanted. Injuries mattered. Matchups mattered. Yet the decision wasn't packaged as punishment. It was sold as progress. That's why fans feel both edges. Pride in the banner, confusion at the exit. It's not a math problem. It's philosophy. Are you building a dynasty or auditioning for one every spring? Which brings us to the only place this story can end, the bigger picture.
That is so crazy. They fired this lady for losing in the playoffs when it wasn't even her fault that they lost. I just cannot get over that, bro.
But it is the end of an era for sure for Brondello and New York.
Yeah, the Liberty said that the search for their next head coach, it is getting underway immediately.
I am sorry. For the life of me, I will not understand how you get fired for losing in the playoffs when it wasn't even your fault that you lost. A potential New York Liberty coaching candidates after firing Sandy Brondello: Becky Hammond and Don Staley. I don't see Don Staley coming to the W. I really don't. I don't think they have enough money for Don Staley. Don Staley is a different class of coach. I can definitely see Don Staley going to the NBA, though. I can see Don Staley definitely going to the NBA. I cannot see her coming to the W. It's just not enough money for her.
This wasn't just a clipboard swap. It was a message about control. Who sets the bar, who moves it, and who pays when the jump misses. Championship or bust reads ambitious until it becomes a revolving door. Proactive sounds wise until it feels pre-written. And Hammond's support matters because it reminds everyone that winning and being the leader players trust are 2 different boxes, rarely checked together. In a league accelerating on ratings and relevance, New York chose turbulence in the name of tomorrow. Nail the hire, and it looks brilliant. Miss, and it looks avoidable. Either way, the standard is out in the open now, and the rest of the W is watching to see whether New York just drew the future or overplayed a strong hand. A title used to buy patience. In New York, it bought pressure. Maybe that's the cost of chasing greatness where the spotlight never blinks. No victory laps, just checkpoints. The next coach won't just chase wins. They'll inherit a rulebook that starts on the last page. Be the last team standing, or don't stay long. The question isn't whether that's fair. The question is whether it works.